Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for this Sacred Heart 250 celebration. We are here at St. Philip the Apostle, and we're preparing for the consecration of our nation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. I'm your host, Krista Corbello, and we have a special guest, Jerome Resurreccion, with you today.
It's me, Jerome Resurreccion.
We're really excited to talk about this commemoration because we haven't seen a lot of people talking in depth about it, but I also have been praying about how Jerome's legacy of young adult ministry and his relationship with Bishop Dave O'Connell, rest in peace, how he has been a part of this along the way. So we have had many unrecorded conversations about Divine Mercy, having both gone to Divine Mercy University, about the Sacred Heart of Jesus and our own personal devotions. So this is really a big moment for us in this nation, but I really want to set the stage in the context of this Sacred Heart commemoration.
I'm actually still surprised. I told you this off camera. I don't hear anybody talking about this historic and prophetic thing that the nation is doing with all the bishops. The bishops all voted last year to consecrate the nation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Never done this before. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. There have been a few, but I don't hear Catholic people online talking. I don't see a lot of things. It's very few. But this is such a big moment in spiritual history. I just wanted to say
I was going to say, I feel like whenever I think of a consecration of a nation, I specifically think of Our Lady of Fatima and her begging and saying...
This is begging. That's right. Our Lady, the Queen of Heaven and Earth, begged. Yes.
And it's saying, consecrate the nation to my Immaculate Heart. Please, 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 before the war. The visions of the children of Fatima. So that's why I think the bishops coming together, like you're saying, to consecrate our nation without an apparition of Mary begging
without
for it.
anyone asking is amazing. Bishops don't do this. They don't do it without being dragged. What is it called? We're being dragged tooth and, how do you say it?
Tooth and nail.
Tooth and nail, is that the right?
Or is it, are you trying to say it's like pulling teeth?
Yeah, it's like pulling teeth. I don't know, I don't understand. So let's go back to Our Lady of Fatima. When they think of consecrations, one of the famous stories of God asking a nation or nations to be consecrated is the apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima. Quick note on these apparitions. If you don't know, Our Lady, Mother Mary, appeared in Portugal to 3 shepherd children. One of the main messages was, besides to pray the rosary, to repent of sin, to turn back to God, she wanted the Pope and all the bishops united to consecrate Russia to her Immaculate Heart. She warned that if they didn't do this, there was already a world war, and she said if they don't do this, there would be another world war. There would be a World War II. Russia would spread its errors throughout the world. Now, at the time, this is strange because people would say to this message, what does she mean, Russia spreading errors? Holy Russia? Russia was holy. It was Orthodox, and it was amazing. But when that war ended, the first war ended, we all know that there became Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And then communism spread throughout the entire world. It's not just that, but atheism spread throughout the whole world. That prophecy, in hindsight, made a lot of sense. At the time, it didn't. It didn't make sense. So anyways, Our Lady of Fatima requested, and did the popes and the bishops listen? Kind of. The first few popes that heard this tried. They did a consecration, but they didn't invite the bishops to do it with them. Or they invited the bishops to do it with them, but Russia's not mentioned. So Mary tells through Sister Lucia, who's on the way to sainthood like her cousins who are part of this apparition, so Saint Jacinta and Francisco. She tells each of these popes every time, sorry, it wasn't accepted. Heaven did not accept this consecration, this act of prayer, not completely. They accepted some of it, and there will be a little bit of an answered prayer there, but because you did not follow the request fully, Russia is still going to spread its errors. There's going to still be a need for conversion.
Now, as you kind of draw the stage for that history of the church from the, 1800s, right? That was the end of the 1800s for Our Lady of Fatima.
Our Lady of Fatima, though, is early 1820s. Yes, this is the 20th century now.
Oh, okay.
We're not yet. Sorry, we'll have to go back to Margaret Mary. We'll go back to Margaret Mary and the Sacred Heart, but I'm just giving the more modern journey of consecration and requests from heaven to consecrate a nation to the heart of God.
Well, let me ask you this question, which I heard recently. What's the point of consecrating to the Immaculate Heart? And what does that have to do with the Sacred Heart? I'm like, oh, but how are the Immaculate Heart and the Sacred Heart linked?
Good question. So, oh man, there's so many directions I could go with this.
My answer to that, when someone asked me recently, was the back of the miraculous medal has the two hearts. That's part of the image of the Immaculate Conception, right? St. Catherine, I think, Laboure from France.
Yeah.
That they're so linked. The two hearts are so linked that they're one, because Mary was perfect. She was the Immaculate Conception. She's the created Immaculate Conception. She's married to the Holy Spirit, who's the uncreated Immaculate Conception.
Right.
To me, these are very interlinked, but I don't have any other, I guess, theology or theological standpoint on why.
They're linked. So first since we're at Fatima, we'll start with that. Jesus tells to Sister Lucia, I want this devotion to the Immaculate Heart to be known. I want them to do it publicly. I want them to do this consecration publicly because I want the devotion to my mother's Immaculate Heart to be united with my Sacred Heart, right? So he wants them to be combined. But then you could ask as Christians, well, what isn't the point, Jesus? Why are we putting Mary's heart and Jesus' heart as one? First, the Immaculate Heart of Mary is not just the Immaculate Heart of Mary. It's the heart of the entire church. The spotless bride. Jesus is coming because the church is supposed to be spotless, purified. It's supposed to be like Mary, like our mother. We're supposed to be like our mother. Our mother who is conceived without sin. She's supposed to be, from her flow all the graces of Christ and the church, but she's also prophetically a symbol of the church itself. The church is supposed to be the immaculate bride of Christ, and from her flow all the graces. So this idea of that Mary's heart, why are we venerating Mary's heart? Because it reveals the power of the Sacred Heart to purify, to transform. And so that's one thing. And then the other thing is we go to St. Maximilian Kolbe, the great martyr in Auschwitz, the one who started the Militia Immaculata. The whole thing from him is trying to bring everyone in the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, so Mary can bring everyone to the reign and the heart of Jesus. Mary's heart is supposed to bring us to the heart of Jesus. And so that's why we're doing these consecrations, why we want a devotion to the Immaculate Heart, because anytime we bring ourselves to Mary, she always brings us to her son, Jesus.
Okay, so my next question, which I heard about this kind of from the grapevine, from other young adult leaders, and especially from Jerome in his time here at the Newman Center, that Bishop Dave consecrated San Gabriel, Southern California, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So this is something that's actually happened here in a smaller way, the young adults from, I guess, 2016, 2017 era. So can you tell us about what that was, what brought it about, how Bishop Dave was involved in that, and how this consecration to the Sacred Heart is a continuation of that legacy?
Yeah, so let's first, Bishop Dave, rest in peace, our slain bishop here in Los Angeles. I asked for his prayers, and I know many of the people that worked with him, all the young adults, asked for his intercessions. He was so involved once he was assigned as an auxiliary bishop in the San Gabriel region. He was involved with praying and interceding for Los Angeles through San Gabriel region. A picture of him where he's on top of this hill where it's overlooking the Los Angeles area, San Gabriel region. He's holding the Eucharistic host up and blessing it, and during adoration, praying, interceding for revival and awakening, for people to come to Christ. He's worked with many people to do a lot of these masses and intercessions and prayers for people to have a conversion and to come to Jesus. But one of the things he did that was amazing, he united with many of the young adult ministries at the time, 2017, different ones in different areas, not just in San Gabriel region. There were young adult ministries from San Bernardino that came out, some from Orange County, and they were all trying to join in because it was the 100th year apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima, and the 100th year since the miracle of the sun happened in Fatima. There's a whole story about that. So there was a lot of people, whether they were Christian, well, they weren't just pilgrims. There were atheists there. The government was there at the time. Portugal, they didn't want religion. When Mother Mary said, well, I'm going to give them a sign that they all believe, the sign was all the people that were there waiting, and some of them mocking these children, saying they see the Virgin Mary and saying they're delusional. The sun, first it's raining, the rain stops, and the sun starts to dance, and it looks at first really nice, but then it looks like it's falling onto the earth and everyone starts freaking out. At the end of it, everyone's clothes are dry. Some people are physically healed, and that was the sign. So anyways, back to the point of Bishop Dave O'Connell. Young adults at the time got together and with Bishop said, we want to consecrate everything to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. We want to, even though she didn't ask us to do it, like she did in Portugal, like she did in Fatima, we want to do it here because we think that if we can surrender Southern California to Jesus through Mary, starting from the spiritual, it would affect things in the natural. And so what did Bishop Dave do? It was him, 400 to 500 young people at the beach. He did a prayer, that there's somewhere out there, there's a prayer where he consecrates Southern California and the land and the people and everyone's families and friends, but also Hollywood. He also consecrates and says, hey, we're going to also consecrate Hollywood to the Immaculate Heart of Mary so that there would be an awakening within Hollywood. And not just Hollywood media, for those to come to know God in a deeper way.
So that's beautiful. I love that story. I've only heard bits and pieces of it over the years, so thank you for sharing that context. That to mind whenever it was announced that the bishops would be consecrating our nation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus for our nation's 250th anniversary. That was something that I was thinking about, and how, this was really a desire of young adults, and there were, especially after the Eucharistic revival last year, that people were really hoping that our nation would be consecrated specifically to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. I know there was kind of this undercurrent or this undertow. There's obviously the tidal wave of grace and how God works in magnanimous ways, but there's also these kind of small movements of the Spirit, but also powerful movements of the Spirit, like an undertow. There were a lot of people desiring this. So much so that the young adults in October started doing our 9 First Fridays and really hoping and praying, really pleading with our bishop, our archbishop, that they would consecrate Los Angeles to the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
That's right. Can I just say, it's really cool to connect the timeline a little bit, because in 2017, what we had done, the young adult ministries, not just one ministry, ministries, young adults were coming together to honor the Immaculate Heart of Mary. They did the 5 First Saturdays, which is what she requested. She requested to do these 5 First Saturdays of prayer, of the Rosary, going to confession, going to the Eucharist. And interestingly, now we're here 9 years later to do for the Sacred Heart. Everyone's doing the First Fridays. So there's like this connection of going from the Immaculate Heart of Mary to Jesus, which is what Mary does. She takes all this, these prayers, all these devotions, all this love, and she brings it to her son, and that's what's happening. To see the 9 First Fridays, to see the Eucharistic revival that's happening, this is all part of the